In the 1970s, in a small city in Colombia, a man named Pablo Escobar was slowly becoming one of the most feared criminals in the world. But before he became rich and powerful, he was just another young man trying to escape poverty. Pablo was born in a poor family. His father was a farmer, and his mother was a school teacher. They did not have much money, but his mother always hoped that Pablo would grow up to become a successful businessman, or maybe even a lawyer. As a teenager, he was already involved in small crimes. He sold fake lottery tickets, stole cars, and sometimes smuggled illegal products across cities. People around him noticed something unusual about him. He was calm under pressure, confident, and very persuasive. One of Pablo's childhood friends later said, "Pablo always believed he would become rich, not successful, rich." At first, Pablo made money through small illegal jobs, but everything changed when he entered the drug business. Back then, cocaine was becoming very popular in the United States. Pablo realized there was an enormous opportunity. He started transporting small amounts of cocaine, but very quickly his business expanded. Soon, he became the leader of the Medellin cartel. People feared him, but strangely, many poor people loved him. And this is where the story becomes complicated. Pablo did terrible things. There is no doubt about that. But at the same time, he helped many poor families. In Medellin, thousands of people lived in dangerous neighborhoods without clean water, electricity, or proper homes. Pablo started building houses for poor families. One day, a woman approached him while he was visiting a neighborhood. "My children sleep on the floor," she told him. A few weeks later, construction workers arrived. That area later became known as Barrio Pablo Escobar. Many people started calling him the Robin Hood of Colombia. He also built football fields for children. Pablo loved football. Sometimes, late at night, he would secretly visit local football games. He would stand quietly in the crowd while children played under weak lights. One former player remembered something surprising. After a game, Pablo walked toward the players carrying a bag full of cash. "You played well," he said. Then he handed money to several young boys so they could buy shoes and food. For those children, Pablo looked like a hero. But behind the kindness was another reality. Violence. A lot of violence. As Pablo became richer, he bought a huge property called Hacienda Nápoles. It was not an ordinary house. It had luxury cars, giant swimming pools, private airports, and even a zoo. Yes, a real zoo. Pablo imported exotic animals from Africa, elephants, zebras, giraffes, and even hippos. The hippos became one of the strangest parts of his story. At first, people thought the animals were beautiful. Families visited the area just to see them. But after Pablo died, the hippos escaped. Without natural predators, they multiplied quickly. Years later, Colombia faced a strange problem. Too many hippos! Scientists said the animals were damaging rivers and ecosystems. Even today, some people call them cocaine hippos. It sounds funny, but it became a serious environmental issue. One thing many people do not know is that Pablo once tried to become a politician. He wanted respect. Money was not enough. He wanted power. Pablo donated money to poor communities and appeared in public wearing elegant clothes. He smiled for cameras and talked about helping the people. For a short time, he became a substitute member of Colombia's Congress. Pablo loved the attention. One day, while entering a government building, he looked at a friend and smiled proudly. "Now the important people must shake my hand," he said. But not everyone accepted him. A politician named Rodrigo Lara Bonilla openly accused Pablo of being a criminal. Soon, newspapers started investigating him. Photographs appeared showing Pablo next to known criminals. His political career collapsed, and Pablo became furious. People who embarrassed him often became targets. That was one of the darkest sides of his personality. He could be generous one moment and terrifying the next. One famous story about Pablo became legendary. At one point, while escaping from enemies, Pablo's daughter was freezing because they were hiding in the mountains. According to his son, Pablo burned around $2 million in cash just to keep his daughter warm. Imagine that. Millions of dollars used like firewood. People around the world could not believe the story. But for Pablo, family was extremely important. He often told his children, "Everything I do is for my family." Of course, many people questioned those words because his actions caused pain to thousands of other families. Still, Pablo deeply loved his wife and children. Sometimes he tried to act like a normal father. He attended birthdays, told jokes at dinner, and watched television with his son. But normal life never lasted long. Danger was always near. Pablo feared one thing more than death: extradition to the United States. He once said, "I would rather have a grave in Colombia than a prison cell in America." At that time, the United States was putting huge pressure on Colombia to stop drug trafficking. Pablo responded with violence. Judges, police officers, journalists, and politicians became targets. Car bombs exploded in cities. People lived in fear. One of the most shocking moments happened in 1989. A commercial airplane exploded in the sky. More than 100 innocent people died. The attack shocked the entire world. The Colombian government increased its efforts to capture Pablo. But finding him was not easy. He constantly changed locations and used an enormous network of informants. Taxi drivers, shop owners, and even children sometimes worked for him. If police entered a neighborhood, Pablo often knew within minutes. Now comes one of the strangest parts of the story. Eventually, Pablo made a deal with the Colombian government. He agreed to surrender, but there was a condition. He would build his own prison. And unbelievably, the government accepted. The prison was called La Catedral, but it did not look like a prison. It looked more like a luxury resort. Inside, there was a football field, a bar, comfortable rooms, waterfalls, and even parties. Pablo continued running his business from inside. Friends visited him freely. Sometimes, beautiful women entered the prison for parties. One night, music was so loud that people living nearby complained. Imagine that, a prison where neighbors complain about parties. But eventually, the government realized things were out of control. When authorities tried to move Pablo to a real prison, he escaped. That escape embarrassed the Colombian government internationally, and it started the final hunt for Pablo Escobar. After the escape, special teams were created to capture him. One of the most famous groups was called the Search Block. The United States also helped Colombia with intelligence and technology. Pablo became more isolated. Many of his friends were dead or arrested. He moved constantly from one hiding place to another. At times, he disguised himself. He wore fake mustaches, different clothes, and glasses. But hiding became harder every day. There is a story that during this period, Pablo once entered a small house where a family lived. The family recognized him immediately. Everyone became silent. The father was terrified. But Pablo simply smiled at the children and asked, "Do you have something to eat?" They shared dinner together quietly. Before leaving, Pablo placed money on the table. Then he disappeared into the night. Stories like these made him almost mythical in Colombia. Some people saw him as a monster. Others saw him as a complicated man shaped by poverty, power, and violence. On December 2nd, 1993, everything ended. Pablo was hiding in Medellin with one bodyguard. For months, police had been tracking his phone calls. That day, Pablo spoke too long on the telephone while talking to his family. Authorities located the call. Soon, police surrounded the neighborhood. Pablo tried to escape across rooftops. Gunfire exploded across the area. Then suddenly, silence. Pablo Escobar was dead. He was 44 years old. Photos of his body spread across newspapers worldwide. Some people celebrated in the streets. Others cried. Thousands attended his funeral. Even after death, Pablo remained one of the most controversial figures in modern history. Today, years after his death, Pablo Escobar is still famous around the world. Movies, documentaries, TV series, and books continue telling his story. Tourists visit places connected to his life. Some people are fascinated by his power and wealth. Others focus on the destruction he caused, because behind the money, luxury, and legends, there was also tragedy. Thousands of innocent people lost their lives during the violence connected to his empire. Children grew up without parents. Families lived in fear. Entire communities suffered. And maybe that is the most important lesson from Pablo's story. Power and money can create the illusion of success, but violence eventually destroys everything. Still, the side stories, the zoo, the football fields, the prison, the burning money, and the escaped hippos continue making Pablo Escobar one of the most unbelievable criminal figures in history. And even today, people still debate the same question. Was he a monster or a man created by a broken system? Maybe he was both. The end.